Hey, what's going on? I'm Ayeeedubb from K975, middays, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And we are doing a special interview today because I don't know if you checked the headlines. I'm hoping you checked the headlines, but there's been an increase in sexual assaults reported on some of our local college campuses like UNC Chapel Hill, North Carolina Central, and NC State. So we thought it was important to talk about this and bring awareness to it and give those some resources. So today I have Monika Johnson Hostler, who is the executive director with NC Coalition Against Sexual Assault. And she's going to talk to us today about what is going on and how we can prevent this from happening. So, welcome, Monika. Monika, what's going on?
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for having me. I look forward to chatting with you today.
For sure. I'm excited. Well, I'm excited for this conversation because we're going to get, some tips and answers, some statistics and just things about this that's going on. Because even though I'm not in college anymore, I think everybody may have had a college story when they were in college about like maybe something happened to a friend or a family member or what to look out for in the future and things like that. So I think this conversation is really important. So I appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And of course, I personally think it's very important, especially for your listeners, whether they have been in college, have college students. All of this is going to be important in terms of resources. So thank you for shining a light on this.
Yes. So I gotta ask real quick, how'd you get involved with the NC Coalition Against Sexual Assault? Like, how did you get to your position?
Oh, that's a great question. Literally, this topic. So I went to a historically Black college university now 30 years ago. This year's my 30th year from entering college. And I honestly had no concept around campus sexual assault or any of that. Um, Two things: I went to study and clearly have a great time. Within the first few months, I'm only child. So it was also my space to develop a lot of friends. So my room was always open, and one of my hallmates who lived across the hall came into my room. It's called the rec, like the recreation center, and she came in and shared that she had been sexually assaulted. She used the word raped because again, I also wasn't using the word sexual assault at that time in 1993, and she shared what happened. But she also shared she didn't want anybody to know because she didn't want him to get in trouble because he played football. And I didn't really know what to do with that information. And so, the one thing I did know is, do you want to go to health department? Do you want to get checked for STDs or pregnancy? So I at least knew those steps. Fast forward my senior year in college, I decided to write my senior thesis on this issue and volunteered with the Rape Crisis Center of Cumberland County in Fayetteville. And literally, I graduated in December and had a job at a rape crisis center at the end of December. So I started working at a rape crisis center in 1996. I came to the North Carolina Coalition Against Sexual Assault in 1999 to lead our campus sexual assault statewide group, which is still in place. And it really was to bring all college campuses, which is over 120 plus campuses, if you include community colleges, our 16 UNC schools, and then private colleges and universities. One, to ensure that they had a policy. Two, did they have a protocol? And three, did they have training? That was in 99. Fast forward now to 2023, we actually have federal legislation that require how campuses respond to some of these issues. So interesting, and I'm excited to be sharing this, particularly with the K97.5 community, because it's my community. It's the station that I listen to. It's the station that I have raised my daughter on as well. And so I'm glad you all are highlighting this for your listeners because I also have a freshman in college this year.
Oh, wow. Well, congratulations to her getting into college and enjoying her freshman year, right?
Yes, 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 yes. But she's also had to hear from me how important these first couple of months are of college, because this is where we see the largest number of sexual assaults happening. And they often call it the red zone, which are the first couple of months of college, especially for freshmen.
Now, is there a reason why the red zone is the first couple months of college? What's the status
So,
behind it?
so a lot of the research, and the research is quite frankly really dated now, but I still think it's very relevant. Is there's quite a few kind of longitudinal, but also key informant interviews of both survivors who've been victimized, but also those who have sexually assaulted on college campus. And none of us who've been to college are going to be, or even been to a college party, are going to be surprised. One, you're unaware of your surroundings because you're just trying to take it all in, so you're not paying attention, in the same way that you would now or a year into college. Two, there's a lot happening. It's when every campus is having every single party. Your larger PWIs are having rush parties. There's lots of drinking. There's also a lot of you don't know people, so you're making friends. And our brains are not developed at 18. So we start to make decisions that feel right in the moment and not have the ability to think through what those consequences might be. So you might be willing to go with someone you don't really know after you've had a couple of drinks that you likely would not do if you were not in that situation. And so just, the fact that you're in college and experiencing it and all the things that we tell people you should do in college, which we say we don't tell them that, but our culture actually perpetuates this lifestyle, especially for college freshmen. So you have all those things happening with brand new students on a large university. And guess what? Without parents or guardians. And so caution is often thrown to the wind during this time as well. So that's what the research states. But again, if any of us think back to those first couple of months, I went to a HBCU, homecomings happen in October. So parties are happening. So we don't have the same rushes as PWIs, but our homecomings are also in October. So those are environments that are conducive to perpetuating sexual violence.
Okay, now that you said it that way, that makes sense. Because 'cause I'm trying to, like, go back into because I went to a PWI, and, I'm trying to think, like, we had a couple parties, some got crazy. Like I said, I don't know anybody who may have, close to me that anything happened, but I
Mhm.
believe there could be some situations where I'm like, I don't know what happened behind the dorm
That's
or
right.
things like that, and so people just taking advantage of, young people that come into college that may not know any better, like you said, they're trying to make friends and, they're away from home for the first time because we feel like, oh, stranger danger growing up and, I don't know, something about college, we just let loose too easy.
I mean, literally all caution is gone. Like any and it's also, I mean, right, it's developmentally appropriate. It's your first time being like, whatever I was told can't be true. I'm gonna live my life. So you throw all those things away. It
Mhm.
doesn't take us that long to be like, oh, wait, hold on. The adults were right about some things. But that's not the experience of almost most college students the first couple of months of college, right?
Mhm.
Like they are literally trying to create their own space under their own rules and trying to forget what they've been told. Because none of us like rules when we were at home. And so I think adults don't really want to be honest about that. And my job is to help adults understand how do we put guardrails in place because absolutely no one wants to stop college students from having fun and enjoying themselves, but we also want them to have the information that they need to make good decisions. And that's both for the people who may be preying on the situation and taking advantage, because that's the other thing is some of these young men who did commit sexual assaults on campus, some of them were not premeditated, right? They're not sexual predators. It was literally, "Uh-oh, she's drunk. This is a great opportunity." And I didn't know that if she's drunk, she can't consent, right? Like, that's important for young people to know, is if someone is intoxicated, they can't consent or give consent to sex. We don't really tell people that. And so, I think about the number of campus sexual assault cases I've been involved in, and some of them absolutely would have been prohibited if people had the information. Mhm.
For sure. So is sexual assault on campus prevalent at all? Like, what can I guess I don't how am I trying to word it? Kinda like you said, sometimes the men in the situation may not know what they're doing is that, and so because if they're drunk or they think the girl is drunk, things like that. So I guess on both sides, have to prevent it, period.
So I keep telling people 20 plus years in this, I still haven't prevented it. But what I do know is what things that we put in place to prevent it. One is education. So now the federal law requires that campuses offer sexual assault resources and information to college students. So I would say when we first saw this put in statute, in the federal statute, when I came to NCCASA, almost, gosh, 25 years ago now, it was the first time that campuses actually had to do those trainings in person. Well, we've now moved to, my daughter literally got a link telling her where to find sexual assault information. So we've moved to, and what I know to be true is if you give me a link, I'm likely not going to click on it because it doesn't seem relevant to me. And so
Mhm.
one of those ways we could do that is really go back to requiring those trainings be necessary and mandatory for freshmen so that they actually get the information and not leave it up to them to find the information. The second thing is provide that information to parents. My daughter may not do everything I say, but guess what? She will. She'll remember some things I said because situational awareness kinds of kicks into like in your head, you're like, oh wait, this situation feels like something I've heard before. So if parents are able to have transparent conversations, and there are resources to help parents feel comfortable if they're not comfortable talking about sex. I do sort of I can talk about sex all day without any inhibitions. A lot of people can't do that. So there are resources for parents to talk to their young people. And then of course, it's scare tactics don't work, but giving them the laws, like if you're intoxicated, either of you so this is what we say, if you're intoxicated, you cannot give enthusiastic consent, meaning, yes, I would have sex. You can sound like that, but you are not fully aware of the decisions you're making. So that's why I think it's important that people understand under what ways can you give consent freely, and that is you can't be intoxicated, and that's either party. That's really important to know. The other thing is also be honest. There are some perpetrators who are on college campuses who know exactly what they're doing. They've repeatedly done this to freshman girls. We also have those cases. So sexual violence on college campuses are prevalent across the US, and that's why we have federal statutes that set these things in place, these guardrails of providing trainings. What are the resources? What are the campus ways that you can report? So, who do you report to? What happens if you choose to report? Campuses have to have all of that stuff readily available on their website by federal law. They also, which is why this is in the news, they also have to report how many sexual assaults are happening on their campus or in their campus jurisdiction. So, like if they have off campus apartments, they also have to report those assaults. Those things have not always been required. So, those are some of the legal protections we put in place. But there are also protections just by, like I tell RAs, hey, when you bring your folks together, male or female, non-binary, non-gender conforming, whoever they are, you tell them what sexual assault is, and you also let them know that people are more likely to be sexually assaulted between the ages of 16 and 24. That's right at the college age. And so, again, you may not take that information in today as an 18-year-old, but the more they hear it, the more we actually start to live into those things. And so, if parents tell them, if their college tells them, if their RA tells them, if they're listening to this, because you got young people listening to K95 as well, then they hear it multiple times and they actually start to believe it and put some of these things into practice. Then there are harm reduction things like bystander intervention. Like, hey, Ayeeedubb, if you and I go to a party tonight, like, how we gonna do this? Right? Like having real conversations with your friends. Like, hey, if you're drinking, you're not gonna be left alone. Like I keep telling my daughter, she's probably feeling like a mother hen to her friends because she's
Mhm.
like, we went out and I told them, hey, somebody got to sober up quickly. So not she's in New York City, so nobody's driving. So they take turns. Like, whose turn is it to watch out for our group? Right? Like she's 18. She knows that because I told her that. And she's actually practicing it. So I was talking to her suite mates and they were like, yeah, yeah, we know the rule. Gabby already told us, like, when we're together, we have to live our life like this. Like it seems a hardship, but you'd be surprised on how we can teach harm reduction behaviors as well. The other thing is if you see something inappropriate, what's your strategy to intervene? Not to harm yourself, not to cause a fight, but you could just be like, hey, Ada, remember you told me that you wanted to see this thing, right? And I can physically remove you as a friend if I see something happening. Or it looks suspicious, or it looks like you're going to somebody's room that you don't know. So those are harm reduction strategies we can talk to our young people about as well.
So it's really about like the more you know, the more informed you are, relaying the message, spreading the word, being the mom of the group, to your friends. Someone got to be aware and alert, like just for situations and have a plan in
Yep,
place, what to do, just the resources. It's all about just knowing, right?
it is. And it's
Mhm.
also it's a knowing and having different messages, right? Like my daughter might hear something very different from you because you're younger than she would from me. So we have to have multiple messengers also.
For sure. And I gotta say, I'm sorry if I like I'm vanishing on my side
You
because it's
do look like I was like, girl, look at your light.
no, I'm right in front of this front window, Monika, and it's just not doing me any justice. So I know I'm like in and out, but Ayeeedubb is still here. She's not a ghost. So, well, then I remember like when I was on air and like school was back in session, and I remember reporting and like typing about articles about sexual assault cases that were happening like the first week of school, like you said, in that red zone at some of our big campuses here in Raleigh. So do you think we are seeing an increase that's alarming that we should be doing, something completely different or really being aware now because a lot more sexual assault cases? are happening at some of our colleges here?
So I don't think the numbers are going up. So this is what we told college campuses. So during the during the Obama administration, he and Biden, who was vice president then, put together a campus work group, and it was primarily young people and some people like myself who've been doing this for a long time. And one of the things that we said is if campuses follow the laws that we put in place that I just talked about, you would see a public rise in those numbers. So I'll give you an example. Before those laws were put in place, really, literally just 10 years ago for most of those, before they were put in place, campuses were reporting zero sexual assaults. Now, if someone was sexually assaulted, they wouldn't use the campus wide alert because they would be like, oh, well, this happened to Monika. So why would I put a campus alert? ADUB doesn't need to know. Well, now they actually have to do a campus wide alert as a part of those policy changes. And so I would say, we said to them, the more you know, the more the numbers will grow. And by the numbers growing, we just mean that the public that they would have to tell the public so the public would be aware. But I would certainly say overall, those numbers are not exponentially different than they were 10 years ago. It's just we have better laws and guardrails in place that require us to hear about them. The other thing that I would say, and this is a shout out to journalists like yourself, is the media is also willing to cover these cases and ask the questions. Before, it would have been, somewhere buried in the news today, sexual assault on, NC State's campus. Now, I had every media outlet calling me saying, "Hey, we had one sexual assault." And of course, they continue to call, but I will tell you more than 10 years ago, they wouldn't have called me for one sexual assault. It would have been a story much further buried in the news story. And now that's not the case. So I also think we've done a great deal of work with campuses, one, having to report it, and two, media outlets picking it up. So the prevalence is roughly still the same, which is still alarming. So I will say to the public, we should be alarmed at the number of the young people who are sexually assaulted because the outcomes, we have students who drop out of school. We have students who don't do well because they've been sexually assaulted and may not tell anybody, may not seek services, don't have resources. So sexual assault does change the trajectory of both people's lives, both the victim and the person who sexually assaulted. So I think that's why doing a interview like this is important because it doesn't just impact one person's life.
Right, because you never know, like, who could be seeing this, whether it happened to them or, like, again, more information that they could take in the future if it does happen. So, we're all just trying to do our part, Monica.
I appreciate it. I really do. And it takes all of us. Like I said, you're a different messenger than me. So you share the message is you doing your part. And honestly, that's the only way we're going to prevent it is if everyone sees their role in changing our culture.
For sure. Is there anything, else that you wanna tell the parents or students that could be watching this, maybe last minute not last minute, but, like, a quick, like, "Okay, this is where you can go for more information."
Yes,
Uh
absolutely.
Yes.
So our website has a lot of resources. It's www.nccasa.org, so nccasa.org, and we have resources if you've been sexually assaulted. It doesn't matter when it happened. All of our agencies have 24-hour crisis line, so they can talk about a current assault or a past assault. So hopefully this is also an opportunity if people experienced sexual violence previously, that this is a way to get free confidential support. We also have a link on our site around it's called Let's Talk About It. So you can just click on there and it drops down messages from young people about breaking down gender roles, breaking down power dynamics, but also telling their parents and friends how to talk about something that's difficult. So that's why it's called Let's Talk About It. And it's from people who really are trying to live out these practices of changing and ending sexual violence, which, like I said, it's a great resource, I think, for parents or guardians on language they can use. We have a messaging guide for the media on here's how you talk about this, here's resources. So I would say our website is a wealth of resources, whether you're a survivor, whether you're from the media, or also there's also resources for people who are like, oh, wait, I just I may have sexually assaulted someone because I didn't know that they couldn't give consent. Because that's also important to note too. And there's also resources for those as well. So yeah.
It's a
And
lot
last
to know.
I will say, actually, I would be remiss if I did not say this. We have an attorney on our staff, and the one thing that was important to me as someone who started this work as a result of my homemade sexual assault changed my entire life. Clearly, I didn't even know this was a job 30 years ago. is that we have an attorney who does sexual assault cases on college campuses for free. So for survivors who want to go through the adjudication process on their campus, she represents them on campus for free.
That's awesome.
Yep.
I I'm all the help we can get, all the resources we
Yes.
can get, I think that's so good.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I appreciate all the questions you ask, and hopefully you'll include the link for your listeners so they can click on it, peruse the website. They can, our emails are on there. They can say, hey, can you tell me exactly what link I should click on for what? We can provide that information. So thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you, Monika. I learned a lot. I'm sure people watching this will learn a lot too. And I was gonna say, even though I said I'm out of college, all my friends are out of college too. When I know in the future for my daughter, my son, we're on college campuses all the time. We could be looking out for
That's all right.
who come to us, think that, we're a safe space. So the more you know, and the more
That's
everybody
all right.
knows, and just make it better. So I
Yes.
appreciate you.
Thank you. And thank you so much again for having me. I appreciate it.
For sure. Well, Monika, you have a great weekend,
You
and
too.
we'll cross paths in the future in person at some point. So,
Absolutely. Now I know what you look like. I'm like, hey, Ayeeedubb, it's me.
"Hello, my girl Monica. Hi." So, I love it. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.